The rain hit the glass walls of Sterling Tower like 1,000 tiny drums. The city outside slept, but the 50th floor was still alive, monitors glowing, papers stacked, and one woman refusing to surrender. Cassandra Sterling, 35, billionaire CEO of Sterling Industries, sat behind her mahogany desk, her wheelchair framed by the city skyline. 6 months ago, she ruled boardrooms. Now she ruled herself, or tried to. Her spine injury had stolen her walk, but not her pride. The digital clock blinked 11:07 p.m. when the door creaked. "Maintenance, ma'am. Do you mind if I clean in here?" She looked up, and for the first time that day saw another human being. Malik Washington, the night janitor. 28, calm eyes, sleeves rolled, uniform damp from mopping the endless marble halls. Cassandra sighed. "Do what you need to do, Mr. Washington," he replied. Malik Washington. He started working silently, methodical, careful not to make noise, but Cassandra noticed. The way he paused to look at her crutches leaning unused by the window. The way his jaw tightened like he understood pain too well. Finally, she said without looking up, "You can speak, Mr. Washington. I'm not porcelain." He smiled faintly. "Wasn't sure if the boss liked conversation." "I'm not your boss," she said sharply. "Not after 11 p.m. "Then I'll take that as permission," he said, wringing out his mop. "If you don't mind me saying, you've been sitting in that chair for hours. You'll hurt your back more than it already is." Cassandra froze. "Excuse me? I study physical therapy," he said simply. "Day classes, night shifts. Muscle tension shows in posture." "You're pushing too hard," she stared at him. "A janitor who studied spinal health? That's bold of you, Mr. Washington. Advising your CEO. "Sometimes truth's worth the risk," he replied quietly. Cassandra smirked, half irritation, half intrigue. "So, what's your diagnosis, doctor?" "Overwork, no rest. Too much pride. Not enough faith," he said, meeting her eyes. For a second, she almost laughed. Almost. Then he added softly, "But I've seen worse come back." "Even walk again," her voice hardened. "You have no idea what doctors told me." "I don't need to know what they said," Malik replied, stepping closer. "I just know they're not gods. Sometimes healing doesn't start in the body. It starts when someone believes again." For the first time in months, Cassandra didn't have an answer. The room was quiet except for the sound of the rain. Malik packed his tools, heading for the door. Then she said quietly, "Mr. Washington, what if you're wrong?" He paused at the doorway. "Then at least you'd have tried," he said. And trying is the first step to walking again. As the door closed, Cassandra stared at her reflection in the window, city lights behind her, her chair beneath her, and a single thought she hadn't felt in months whispered through her mind. Maybe he's right. The next night the tower slept again, except for one office glowing at the top. Cassandra told herself she stayed late for work, but truth was she was waiting to see if the janitor with the strange confidence would show up. At 11:02 p.m., the elevator dinged. The same quiet footsteps. The same mop. "You're back," she said without looking up. "You're still here," he replied. "Guess we both have bad habits." He began cleaning, humming softly. Cassandra watched his reflection in the glass wall. Focused, steady, moving like someone who had purpose beyond paycheck. Finally she asked, "You really study physical therapy?" "Almost done. 8 months to graduation. Then why mop floors instead of healing people?" He looked up, half-smile forming. "Because healing school doesn't pay for itself. And healing people starts wherever you find them." That line hit her harder than she expected. The silence turned heavy. Not awkward, but meaningful. Malik noticed her chair angled wrong. "May I?" he asked. She hesitated, then nodded. He adjusted the footrest, raised the arm support, shifted the cushion. "Better?" Cassandra blinked. "Actually, yes. Small things matter," he said. "That's how motion begins. Tiny corrections repeated till strength returns." Hook beat. She looked down at her hands, then back at him. He'd just summarized everything she'd lost, and maybe everything she could still recover. "You really think someone like me could walk again?" she asked. "I don't think," he said. "I believe." She laughed once, sharp and bitter. "You don't know my prognosis." "Then tell me," he said gently. "Incomplete T12. Doctors say no voluntary motion below the waist. He whistled low. Incomplete means connection still exists. That's not never, that's not yet. Cassandra froze. She hadn't heard not yet since the accident. Everyone else said, accept it. This janitor said, fight it. Hook beat number 2. Audience feels the first spark of hope. What if I tried? She whispered. He smiled. Then I'd help you. You'd help me? Yes, ma'am. Free of charge. You teach me how a CEO fights. I teach you how a body remembers. Cassandra stared at him, the rain behind him turning the window into a mirror of light. No one in months had offered help without pity. He was different. Fine, she said. 1 session. Tomorrow at 6. Morning or evening? Morning. Before I change my mind. He grinned, the first real smile she'd seen since the accident. I'll bring coffee. And hope. Hook beat number 3. The challenge is set. The audience senses the beginning of transformation. When Malik left, Cassandra sat in silence. For the first time, the city lights looked less like prison bars and more like possibilities. She whispered to herself, what if he's right? Outside, the janitor walked into the rain, drenched but smiling. Because tonight, a miracle had agreed to meet him at sunrise. The sun hadn't fully risen when Malik rolled a portable therapy table into Cassandra's office. She blinked at the sight, sweatpants, hoodie, medical bag. No mop tonight. Good morning, Miss Sterling. Good morning, Dr. Washington, she teased. He chuckled. Let's just say student doctor. Cassandra's assistant peeked in, eyes wide. Ma'am, is this normal? From now on, it is, Cassandra said. Hold all calls. Hook beat number 1. Power reversal. The CEO just gave authority to a janitor. Malik unfolded a mat beside her desk. We start simple. Breathwork, posture, circulation. Healing begins before movement. Breathing. That's it? She asked, doubtful. He nodded. That's everything. He placed his hands gently on her shoulders. Inhale deep. Feel your ribs expand. Again, your spine may have fallen, but your body hasn't forgotten. For the first time in months, she obeyed someone's instruction without resistance. Her breath steadied. Her jaw unclenched. You feel that? I feel. Lighter. Good. That's what progress feels like before it shows. Hook beat number 2. Calm, intimate transformation. Viewers sense the chemistry. After warm-ups, he began testing reflexes. Focus on your right leg, he said. Just imagine it moving. She tried. Nothing. It's pointless, she muttered. Close your eyes, he said softly. Now imagine yourself standing again. The sound of your heels clicking on the floor. The air from the open window on your face. Feel that image until it becomes real. She concentrated. Her breath hitched. Then the faintest twitch. Wait, he said quickly, eyes lighting up. Do that again. I didn't. You did. The nerve fired. Hook beat number 3. Miracle micro moment. Audience sits forward. Her eyes filled. Was that real? As real as the floor under us, he said. For the next hour they worked in silence. Him guiding, her resisting, then trying again. Sweat gathered on her forehead. Determination burned through doubt. When it ended, Malik handed her a water bottle. How do you feel? Exhausted, he smiled. Good, that means your body remembers. She laughed through the tears. You talk like pain's a blessing. Sometimes it is, he said. Pain means connection isn't gone yet. Hook beat number 4. Deeper emotional philosophy, empathy, arc peaks. As he packed his equipment, Cassandra stopped him. Why are you doing this, really? He looked at her, honest, calm. Because everyone gave up on you. I don't want you to join them. He left. The office was silent again. But it wasn't empty anymore. The air carried something new, faith. Cassandra stared at her reflection in the window, whispering, if pain means connection. Maybe I'm still alive. Hook beat number 5, emotional cliffhanger. 3 weeks passed. The midnight sessions turned into early mornings, and the early mornings became ritual. Cassandra had stopped counting board meetings and started counting breaths between muscle contractions. Malik adjusted the brace on her thigh, steady but patient. Again, he said quietly. Her hands trembled on the support bar. I can't, she muttered through clenched teeth. Yes, you can, he replied calmly. Your body listens to belief before it obeys command. Her foot moved, just a tremor, a twitch so small it could have been imagined. But Malik's expression told her it was real. I didn't see it, he said softly. I felt it. She stared down at her leg as if it had betrayed her in the best possible way. A small motion, a tiny victory, but it was more than any of her specialists had promised. For the first time, Cassandra laughed without remembering pain. Later, as he helped her stretch, she glanced at him. You know, she said slowly, you're the only person who talks to me like I'm not broken. Malik smiled faintly. That's because I see you before the chair. And what do you see? A fighter pretending she's made of steel when she's really made of light. She turned away quickly, hiding the smile that crept up before she could stop it. The next day, the office buzzed with whispers. Employees paused when she passed by. Someone had leaked her therapy routine. The CEO's doing private sessions with a janitor, they murmured. He's probably after her money. When her assistant Janet brought her a folder, she hesitated. Ma'am, maybe you should keep your sessions private. The board is already talking. Cassandra's tone was sharp but controlled. Let them talk. Their words won't decide whether I stand again. That night, however, her confidence wavered. She sat in the dim office, her reflection framed by city lights, half power, half pain. The door opened softly behind her. You heard them too, she said, not turning around. I did, Malik answered. And? I don't clean floors for their approval, he said simply. I clean because dirt doesn't care who you are. She finally faced him. They think you're using me. His voice stayed low, steady. What do you think? Cassandra's breath slowed. I think you're the only one who's been honest with me since the accident. For a long moment, they just looked at each other, and for the first time, silence didn't feel empty. It felt alive. The next morning, frustration took over. Cassandra slammed her hand on the table. It's useless. I'll never walk. Malik's tone turned sharp, not unkind, but commanding. Don't you dare say that again. You don't understand. She snapped. I understand more than you think, he said firmly. I've watched people give up right before they proved themselves. Don't be one of them. Her eyes filled with tears. Then don't leave me. He stepped closer, his voice soft but unshakable. I won't. Not until you walk out of this room on your own. The room fell silent except for the sound of her breathing, slow and steady. For the first time, Cassandra believed him completely. The next morning began with silence. Cassandra sat in her wheelchair staring at the floor, her fingers tracing the grooves of the armrest. Malik arrived as usual, carrying the therapy kit, but something about her expression stopped him. You didn't sleep, he said quietly. She shook her head. I kept hearing your voice. Don't you dare say that again. Her lips curved faintly. You sounded like a soldier, he smiled. Maybe that's what healing requires. Discipline, not mercy. She nodded slowly, taking a deep breath. Then let's fight. For the next hour, the office became a battleground. Malik guided her through leg lifts, balance exercises, muscle stimulation drills, each one testing limits she didn't know she had. Sweat beaded down her neck. Her breaths came fast, but she refused to stop. When she finally managed to straighten one leg for a full 5 seconds, Malik exhaled in quiet disbelief. That's progress, Cassandra. Real, measurable progress. She leaned back, trembling but smiling through it. Feels like a miracle. Not a miracle, he said softly. Just proof that you were never broken, only rebuilding. That night, Cassandra stared at her reflection again, but this time, she didn't see a woman in a wheelchair. She saw movement, possibility, life. By the end of the week, her small victories began to show. She could shift her own weight, hold herself upright, and stand for 3 seconds while gripping the parallel bars. Malik clapped once, trying to stay professional but failing miserably. You did that, he said. We did that, she corrected, her voice trembling. When she returned home that evening, she caught herself whispering a prayer she hadn't said since childhood. Thank you. The following day, her lead doctor, Dr. Harrison, requested a progress evaluation. Cassandra invited Malik to attend. The air in the medical room was tense. Dr. Harrison adjusted his glasses. Miss Sterling, I understand you've been working with Mr. Washington? Malik nodded. Yes, sir. And you claim progress? Cassandra's reply was calm. Not claims, doctor. Results. She gripped the support rails and slowly but surely straightened her legs. For 5 long seconds she stood without assistance. The doctor froze, speechless. That shouldn't be possible at this stage. It is, Malik said quietly, because she refused to believe otherwise. Dr. Harrison turned to him, stunned. What techniques are you using? Consistency, Malik replied. And faith. After the doctor left, Cassandra looked at Malik with tears in her eyes. You just made a man with 4 degrees believe in miracles. He smiled gently. I didn't. You did. The whispers returned the next morning, sharper this time. Employees murmured that the janitor was taking credit for the CEO's recovery, that something inappropriate was happening behind closed doors. Cassandra heard every word, but for the first time she didn't care. That evening, Malik found her at the window again. Rough day? He asked. They think you're after my money now. He laughed quietly. If I wanted money, I wouldn't be pushing brooms at midnight. She smiled at that. Then why are you here? He looked at her for a long moment before answering. Because you make me believe that even broken things can rise again. The air between them shifted. He didn't move closer, but he didn't need to. The space already felt electric. Her voice was a whisper. What happens when I do walk again? He hesitated. Then you'll walk away. Like you should. Her eyes softened. And if I don't want to? Malik's throat tightened. Then maybe I'll stay. Neither spoke after that. Only the city lights moved, painting gold across the glass. As the woman who once ruled boardrooms and the man who once mopped them realized they were standing on the same ground. Cassandra's recovery continued like a slow sunrise. Invisible at first, then suddenly impossible to ignore. Every morning, Malik arrived before dawn, the city still asleep. He'd set up the therapy table, stretch bands, and a small Bluetooth speaker that played soft jazz instead of sterile silence. Cassandra teased him for it once, but secretly, that music became her heartbeat. On the 15th week of training, something remarkable happened. She stood from the chair, holding the bars, and didn't fall. Her hands trembled, but her knees held steady. Malik's voice broke the still air. You're doing it. Cassandra, you're doing it. She laughed and cried at the same time. It feels like my body just remembered. He nodded. Exactly. The body remembers what hope teaches it. When she lowered herself back into the chair, she covered her face and sobbed, not from pain, but from the release of everything she'd buried since that accident. Malik didn't speak. He simply knelt in front of her, a quiet guardian of her victory. That evening, Cassandra couldn't focus on her quarterly reports. She kept replaying that moment in her head, how his hands had steadied her waist, how his voice had carried her forward when she wanted to stop. She wasn't supposed to feel this, but every time Malik smiled, the Ice Queen of Sterling Industries melted a little more. 2 days later, her assistant Janet entered the office, uneasy. Cassandra, people are starting to talk. About you and Mr. Washington. Cassandra didn't look up. Let them, Janet hesitated. They're saying he's manipulating you, that this relationship isn't professional. That word made Cassandra freeze. Relationship. Was that what this was becoming? She didn't answer. She didn't deny it either. That night, Malik found her on the terrace watching the rain. They're talking, she said quietly. I know. They think you're using me. Malik leaned on the railing beside her. If I wanted to use you, I'd ask for money. But all I want is for you to stand again. She turned to him, eyes shining. And if I already have? He met her gaze. Then I guess my work's just beginning. The tension hung between them, fragile but magnetic. She whispered, You shouldn't say things like that. Then stop looking at me like that, he said softly. She looked away, heart pounding, realizing there were some kinds of healing even medicine couldn't explain. The next morning, during therapy, she lost balance mid-exercise. Malik caught her instantly, his arm firm around her waist. Their faces were inches apart. Neither moved. Neither spoke. You okay? He asked, voice barely audible. Not even close, she whispered. And for the first time since her accident, Cassandra Sterling wasn't afraid of falling because she finally trusted who would catch her. The boardroom fell silent as Cassandra entered, walking slowly but confidently with a sleek black cane. Every head turned. Every whisper died. Her heels clicked like thunder across the marble floor, each step a declaration of defiance. "Good morning," she said calmly, setting her files on the table. Patricia Winters blinked in disbelief. "Cassandra, you're walking," Cassandra finished for her, lips curling in a faint smile. "And before anyone asks, no, it's not a miracle. It's hard work, guided by someone who refused to see me as broken." Murmurs rippled through the room. Cassandra continued her presentation without missing a beat, her voice sharp, commanding, alive. She laid out expansion plans, profits, new initiatives, everything Morrison Tech had hoped she'd fail to deliver. When she finished, the room burst into applause. As the board filed out, Patricia lingered. "You proved everyone wrong." "No," Cassandra said, glancing toward the door where Malik stood quietly, waiting. "We proved that strength isn't about walking alone. It's about knowing who walks beside you." That night, the city glowed beneath them as Cassandra and Malik stood on the rooftop of Sterling Tower. The skyline reflected in the glass like a crown of light. "You changed everything," she whispered. He smiled. "No, you just remembered who you were." She turned toward him, eyes soft. "And what about you, Malik? What did you remember?" He hesitated, then reached out, his hand finding hers. "That healing doesn't end when the body stands. It ends when the heart stops hiding." Her breath caught as the wind swirled around them. Without thinking, she leaned forward, resting her head against his chest. "You helped me walk," she whispered. "But somewhere along the way, you taught me to love again. And you," he murmured, "taught me that love is the greatest therapy of all." Below them, the city pulsed with life, sirens, laughter, movement. But up there, time stood still. Two souls who shouldn't have met had rewritten their destinies. Not through power or privilege, but through belief. Months later, Sterling Industries launched a new foundation, the Washington Sterling Rehabilitation Initiative, providing free therapy for patients who'd been told recovery was impossible. Cassandra stood at the opening ceremony beside Malik, no wheelchair in sight, only strength, grace, and quiet pride. "This isn't just a program," she said into the microphone. "It's a promise that no one is beyond hope and no dream is too broken to rebuild." As applause thundered, Malik squeezed her hand. "Told you you'd walk," he whispered. Cassandra smiled. "You were wrong." He frowned playfully. "Wrong? I didn't just walk," she said softly. "I flew." The screen faded to black, leaving her words echoing in the heart of every viewer. "If this story touched you," the narrator said, voice low and emotional, "remember, sometimes the greatest miracle isn't healing the body, but healing the soul." Share this video if you believe love still changes lives. And don't forget to subscribe because tomorrow's story will remind you that courage is the real cure.